It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, calling in from Toronto, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery.
From St. John's, I'm Phil Emery. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to getting back in the saddle after taking our little holiday break.
Yes.
We don't do very often.
No, we don't do very often, but, well, great to be back. And great to have our listeners back with us. And for everyone else, please send your comments and questions, too, at Song Talk Radio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. Tonight, we're very happy to welcome back to the show Mississauga-based singer-songwriter Matt Zaddy. How are you doing, Matt?
Good to be here. Very happy to be here. And Phil, I had no idea you were in St. John's. That's cool.
Yes. We moved out here so we could buy a house. And it's thanks to the miracle of modern technology. Life has not changed all that much.
Very cool. How's the weather?
You know, it's actually been fine. It's actually been warmer in St. John's than it has in Toronto for the last little while, which is kind of funny. It gets very windy here and sometimes rainy, but actually it doesn't get all that cold. So, there you go.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cold. Okay. And just a little bit about Matt Zaddy. Blending folk rock and rhythm and blues, there's something for every music fan to love about singer-songwriter Matt Zaddy. A storyteller at heart, Matt's music speaks to the soul, with tales of life, love, hardship, and redemption. Having shared the stage with artists including Kanon, Tom Cochrane, Jim Cuddy, The Trues, Cowboy Junkies, 5440, and Sam Roberts, Matt Zaddy's intention is to connect with as many listeners as possible, regardless of any genre restrictions. Matt's music certainly possesses everything to achieve that goal in a big way, and to place Matt Zaddy squarely in the conversation about Canada's most promising singer-songwriters. Matt released his latest single, Far Too Long, on November 20, 2024. It has been added to over 900 Spotify playlists since then. The official video was released on January 21st, 2025, garnering over 21,000 views. So let's get started by listening to Matt Zaddy's song, Far Too Long. And remember, you can find the lyric sheet on the show post at songtalk.ca to follow along. Let's hit it, Phil.
Barely awake and barely asleep. So much to do, no time to breathe. I think I'm finally making headway. 2 steps forward and 3 back. Don't know what to do, I've lost track. The 80-hour week starting to get to me. 'Cause I've been living 2 lives for too long. Can't you see how much time has gone? Looking for the string to carry on. And it's been far too long. Far too long. Knee deep or neck deep, I forgot where I was and where I've been. What's the point if there's no memory? All I wanna do is live my life, do the things I want on my time. Is it too much to ask with all I've given in? 'Cause I've been living 2 lives for too long. It's plain to see how much time has gone. Looking for the can see how much time has gone, looking for the strength to carry on, and it's been. 'Cause I've been living true lives for too long. You can see how much time has gone, looking for the strength to carry on, and it's been, always been. 'Cause I've been living true lives for too long. True lives for too long. It's been far too long. Barely awake and barely asleep. So much to do, no time to breathe. I think I'm finally making headway.
Great stuff.
Great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I figured if you're recording the video, I may as well play along for fun.
Always a good help.
It's great because our listeners have gotten used to Roxy making an appearance.
I was thoroughly enjoying the cat tail kind of going across the screen.
The cat tail was trying to conduct.
Mine is presently asleep over there, so there you
Oh,
go.
lucky. Interesting how you get right into the song. No intro, no 8-bar intro, just right into the lyrics right off the top.
So there's a few reasons for that. One of them is the fact that it's the nature of the way that songs are consumed now. Depending on who your listeners are, I love big, long instrumental, groovy intros. And in a live context, I always will do that. But in a streaming audience where, it's like 32 seconds before anything counts, I find a lot of songs now, it just ends up meat and potatoes right away. It also keeps the song, in this case, into because it has had some radio play, into radio format in terms of the timing. It's sitting just under 3:30, which sort of ideal radio length.
Is there also an aspect of this that you feel it's very much story first, that you want to get into the lyric right away? Because to do an 8 loop of the chord progression, it may not mean as much as the story does, yeah?
Well, I think the story is that the song is very much based around the story, and everything is really serving that for its purpose. In a live context, I would tell people the details behind what it was about, so I could kind of start with the story like that. But in this case, yeah, it's story right away. That's actually a really good way to explain it. I like that.
And interesting the way it's not a song about love or a relationship. It's kind of an adult song.
It's one of those things, I do have songs that do fall into that sort of writing you a love song, if you will, but this for me was just a very much a real point in my life where I was in a deep burnout, and I didn't realize it until I literally lost a week's worth of memories. I'm quite happy to explain if you guys want. It's
Of course.
Yeah, I was a number of years ago. This was probably now close to 10 years ago. I was working, my day job, I was a paralegal. I was fighting people's traffic tickets, and I was doing about 40 plus hours a week doing that, and 40 plus hours a week doing music. I was, at that time, I was running 3 open mics a week. I was gigging on weekends, and I was teaching between 15 and 30 students, depending on the week. So it was between 80 and 100 hours a week. And the thing is, I did that for 3 years straight. I had Sundays off sometimes, depending on what my gig schedule was, but I was doing 100 hours, 80 to 100 hour weeks. And 80-hour weeks, like it says in the song, had a nicer ring to it than 100-hour weeks. So,
Sings a little bit better, yeah.
But, it was, that's it. The phonetics were better. But in many cases, it was 100-hour weeks for me. And I got so used to working in that type of a cycle that it just became normal for me, which is not a good thing. And I had this memory where my younger brother, he was working with me at the time, and he had gone away for a few days, like about a week for vacation, and then came back, and he came into the office, and he was like, hey, what'd you get up to last week? And I had no idea, no memories at all. I was drinking a pot and a half, 2 pots of coffee a day. I was basically going from, first thing in the morning until 1 or 2 in the morning every day. And I didn't even realize I was burnt out because I was so accustomed to just grinding that I lost an entire week's worth of memories. I still don't remember what happened the week before he was gone. And I'm sure some of that was my routine was so set that I was on autopilot. But it was sort of a critical moment for me where I said, okay, I really need to make a change in my life because this is not a healthy thing to do. And that's actually where I started to wind down the paralegal part of my work life so that I would be doing solely music. Because basically when you're in your 20s, it's not a big deal to grind like that because, you have endless energy. But in my 30s, it started to take its toll on me, and I had to make like meaningful change in my life in order to be able to even just to function and also to have a relationship. I'm sure my wife is grateful that I stopped working like an idiot.
That almost sounds like, I mean, that is this song, but it almost sounds like that would make a cool song in itself. Like, where did that week go? Like, just to really to focus on that loss that seems so extreme and inconceivable to.
Yeah, I've heard of people losing time when they're in like a state of insomnia, and that's probably the closest comparison that I could have to it. And you're right. I think that I could take that idea in and of itself, and you could write a song around that. This was sort of the overall sort of picture of. Yes. Live better.
And this song really fascinates me from a structural point of view, because if I'm not mistaken, it's the same chord progression throughout, is it not?
It varies a little bit in a couple of parts. The verse and the chorus do have the same chord progression. The interlude that you hear after the first chorus is different, and the bridge is different. And then obviously 2 laughs for too long, this, but it was one of those things, like it felt so natural having a single chord progression like that. And then the bridge came together. It just, I think the part that came last was the little interlude part, which is very stylistically very like Pink Floyd-esque.
Because the bridge almost sounds like a modified chorus. Like it has a very similar energy to it. It's got a similar enough sort of melodic, shape to it that it almost felt like it was a chorus B.
Kind of, yeah. Like it was one of those things. Like I have some songs of mine where there are, a much more drastic differences between the verses and the choruses. For whatever reason, the way that this felt naturally was to sort of continue that theme. The only thing I try to do in the bridge is build it dynamically more than anything else, so that it feels that there's an intensity there that you get in the bridge, particularly at the end with that till the days you're old, where you can noticeably feel the difference.
Yeah, it does have a bit of a lift there for sure, but it's not like you're taking an extremely left turn and giving us from a different point of view.
I was gonna say the only left turn in the song is that quick little interlude that's like 10 seconds. Oh, the original. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's a good question about, writing a song, and I think I've heard some songwriters talking about how, they really got into the mechanics and the fidgety bits of songwriting, but how they almost have to prevent themselves from getting into that headspace and being open and letting a song do what it wants to do instead of, doing a song like this and maybe going, okay, now the bridge has to have a melodic center, or it has to go to the minor third or something, to get your brain too much into it. It's an interesting walk between the fidgety bits of songwriting and just letting it go naturally.
It can be a tug of war between your, the intellectual and the emotional with it, right? And I think in this case, for the most part, I let the emotions dictate it more so. And ultimately, any one of us, what we're trying to do is to serve the song as best we can. And I found that the way that this went, it was such a natural feeling that I didn't want to fight it. I think that if I had been fighting it, it would have made it inauthentic. Like, I think it just would have been, noodling for the sake of noodling's sake. Like, it's just like, as far as the progression itself, it's one of the simplest songs I've ever released. Like, if I was to compare it to most of what I've released aside from this, it is probably the simplest. But I think that I've had more than a few people tell me that just the way that it was presented, it really hit home. So I would say mission accomplished. From a putting the story first.
Yeah. Because I remember last time you came on the show, you were teaching us about secondary dominance.
I remembered.
We went on a whole thing on that.
And this song actually uses a little bit of secondary dominance as well in the that quick little interlude.
The interlude, yeah.
Yeah, the E minor to the E minor 7 to the A9 is a 2/5 in the key of D, but the song's in the key of G, so that A is functioning as a secondary dominant.
Right, and that interlude part. I mean, when that hits, it does take this nice little twist, and I kind of wanted that to come back.
Interestingly enough,
again, because I just loved it so much.
Interestingly enough, I actually, in the original version of the song, I had the structure of it was a little bit different. I actually had that interlude, a longer version of that interlude, slightly modified. And I think I will probably bust that out in a live context. But one of the things I did with this thing, when I put the structure together for this was I tried to strip away anything that was just sort of, I don't think indulgence is the right term, but to anything that wasn't relevant to the story. I originally, when I had the song written, I had, that first, like the way that you were like, oh, it's just right into the words. Originally, when I wrote this, it had a little bit of an interlude before that, the finger style progression, and then I had a verse, a quick interlude, another verse, a chorus. Then I had another interlude, then I had another chorus, then I had the bridge that and then another chorus, and it was like a 6-minute song. And I said, okay, and I said, okay. What is, let's for lack of a better term, what's the meat and potatoes here? What's the crux of the story here that we can use and really build it on that? And I think I actually learned to trim this way more so with the producer I've been working with in the last, I think we started working together in 2018. And I remember the first time I went in with him, his name's Ross Citrullo. He's won a Juno, he's won an Emmy, he's Juno nominated. And, the first time I went in the studio with him, he like hacked to death the 2 of my songs. And I had been playing these like this for a couple of years. So it was like really uncomfortable and emotional. And, but what I learned in the process of doing that is that ultimately you can put anything in a song. And sometimes you want to just keep it to the bare essentials. And I think this song is like, this song is very much has a feel of like an Americana or country song. And, what do they say about country, right? 4 chords and the truth. So I sort of took that as the leading idea by which to make the song happen. And I think that the end product, despite the fact that my brain, when I first started playing it in this format, it was so weird for me. Now it's pretty natural. And now I can think, okay, now I can play it this way, but if I want to throw in an interlude here, or if I want to add this little bits in here, maybe we can do that in a live context. Like we've all seen, record versions of songs and live versions of songs that go in, very different places. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is good. And it's, I think it can be hard when we're writing a song because we get so familiar with it that we can be worried that it's boring. There's not enough interesting things happening, so we can start cramming it full of interludes and key changes, and maybe the song doesn't need that,
It's like you're reading my mind or something. I have a tendency when I write to put more in it that is necessary. So what I've been trying to do is strip things back, build them up, and try to understand where's the right place to stop. That's sort of what I've been trying to do, because I have some songs, like I came from writing proggy death metal where you'd have 35 changes in 3.5 minutes. Yeah, very angular and dissonant. Like it was like basically chromaticism with very odd metered changes with howling banshee vocals. Very different than what I'm doing now. So it's like there's this massive dichotomy in the writing that I had done between what I did there and what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And sometimes that kind of creeps in every now and then, where it's like, why don't you throw in this extra thing and this extra thing and a little spitter spatter over there?
Yeah. It's really interesting that you say, like at the top of the show, you're saying the experience where this song stemmed from was a decade ago, and perhaps if you had written about that experience then, or even 8 years ago, this would have been a very different thing, wouldn't it? It may have been.
The interesting thing is, I found my first demo of this song. It's 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I did write the original version of this then. I guess it would have been 2016.
Okay.
And I had just put out a record at the end of 2015, my first as a singer-songwriter. So this one had been kicking around for a little while. And I remember when I was listening to the demo, because Heather and I were for listeners, Heather Christine is my wife. She's a jazz, R&B, soul artist, and she was coming up with a couple of other vocal ideas, and I had this other vocal line in there which never actually ended up making it to the recording, just because, again, how many more things do you need to add? There was this vocal line that I had that was like, I've been working so damn long, can't you see the time that's gone? And when we got in the studio and we did it, all that the vocals needed in the background were oohs, just to fill it in. It didn't necessarily need that line. And it was one of those things, like in my brain, I'm like, should I have added that? Should we not? But we tried it, and it just didn't feel right anymore after we had kind of reimagined the song in its present state.
So the version that you wrote 9 years ago, was it basically this, or did it have more stuff in it? Like you said, with that vocal line, but at the meat and potatoes level version of that song, it had more. Like that version I was describing with all these interludes and extra parts.
So that was the version then.
Okay.
This modern version of it, I had put together before we went in the studio, and I had said, okay, that was then, this is now. Let's see what I can do with this song. And like I said, bare elements here. So I stripped away a lot of it. But when I went in to work with Ross, actually, it's actually a hilarious story. I'll get to that too. But we were almost in complete agreement on it. The only thing that he says, you need a chorus after that first verse, because you've got these two verses back to back and then no other verse. You have an interlude and then sort of a bridge. So what we ended up doing, he says, people can debate song structure, he says, but this song feels like it needs it right there. And I said, okay, I'm going to trust you, because this guy's he's a master arranger. He is like everything that we've taken of mine, where we, dissected it and put it back together, came out better in the process. So I said, okay, I'm comfortable with that. Like, like I said, I had already grown out of that. I'm so emotionally invested in the original song structure. So because I've outgrown that, I was like, okay, let's not like a jigsaw puzzle, but let's move things around a little bit that will best reflect the tune in the context that it's written. And it worked. Like I said, there was longer interludes, there was less choruses. There were two verses with just that little interlude thing now that comes after the first chorus. He's like, I really like that, but let's just have that as an interlude into the second verse. And I said, that actually makes a lot of sense. So I said, it's one of those things that when you work with somebody who is very good, it can have a very positive effect on your writing. This is why people go to songwriting camps. This is why people do, they get feedback from people. And sometimes we get very, you can be offended or take it personally, but it's really just about, anytime I've been in a situation where I've been in like a songwriting circle, or where people are asking for honest feedback, if you trust the people who are giving that, you don't have to necessarily do it, but consider it at least. And in this case with Ross, it was one of those things that, on reflection, it made a lot of sense. And I think that the end product shows that.
Yeah, because it kind of goes back to what Phil was talking about you get used to doing it a certain way. If you wrote this song 9 years ago and that's what it's been, and that's what's always had. Then when you get a fresh set of ears on it, whether it's a Juno nominated person or not, sometimes a fresh pair of ears, with Feedback Circle or Songwriters Meetup or whatever, it's a very different perspective, and that's kind of a fresh way of looking at it and going, yeah, maybe you don't need a double verse off the top or whatever the case may be. It's really fascinating to see how it would evolve over time. But again, when I was getting back to the chord structures being similar, it's that sort of approach at the meat and potatoes level, like you're saying, that you can play around with things like probably your prog metal stuff. Maybe it's a little bit less flexible in cutting stuff out and putting sections, like playing around with sections in those sorts of songs. Where in this type of song, it's pretty easy to, and like I say, live you can extend something, you can add a little section here, take away something, whatever. Yeah,
the other stuff I was doing, because it was extremely tightly structured, it was a little bit more rigid. It was very cool to listen to, really intense and musically very interesting, but it was definitely more rigid than this is. There's a flow to this that feels a little bit more natural, that you can just sort of embrace in a I guess just in a straighter, groovier kind of context. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really liked with this song that we were able to track so much of it live off the floor. Like we did,
nice.
we did. Honestly, we did all the bed tracks for this in an hour.
Nice.
We did. I had really good players on the recording, and basically we did. I was supposed to do a full day of. This is the story I was going to tell. I was supposed to do a full day of pre-production, but I had just come back from the cottage, and I woke up and I had like 100 dots all over my body, and I didn't know what it was. So I called telehealth, that thing you can call, and we did a video cons, and they're like, well, it doesn't look like it's something that's contagious. And then I went to my doctor. He says, yeah, it looks like you caught something in the water. And I found out I got something called swimmer's itch, which is like a parasite.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, but it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But so we only ended up having 4 hours for pre-production. So we just made really good use of the time we had. We laid down some MIDI drums. I played bass on the pre-pro and the acoustic guitar. So when we came back in the next day with the full band, I just sent the guys the chart the night before, and it's a pretty straightforward tune. It's very diatonic, so we could just sort of feel it out. But we did, by the time we got everything sound checked, we recorded from 12 until 12:50, and we used the acoustic guitar ghost tracks, and we did vocals, bass, organ, and drums live off the floor in the same room.
Nice.
Yeah, I was in a vocal booth, but they were all in the same room.
You did the vocals and the vocals at the same time too.
Oh yeah, we did about 5-6 takes through the song, and then our organ player Miles, Ross has a really nice grand piano at the studio, so he did 3 takes with the grand piano to fill it in. It's got a sort of like the feel of the grand piano that kind of feels like the band, like boom, 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 very like in the vein of like The Weight or something.
Right.
And he was like, all right, I got a gig in Sarnia now. I'll see you later. He just left.
Holy cow.
Phil, just to check, is that a different cattail I just saw?
Yes, we have 4 cats. So.
Oh, a man after my own heart.
It is until one of them swallows a string and costs you thousands of dollars.
Oh, I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doing stuff live off the floor is definitely the way to do it. It captures, what the band really is. It captures the immediacy, and it's so easy for people to do stuff on their own with loops and stuff, and it sounds produced, but it doesn't have that magic, I think, that having a live band does.
There's communication between players when you have them in the same room that you cannot get when you're just layering things. And based on the style, like there are some genres, like I said, when things are super rigid, where it makes sense for it. For what I'm doing right now, nope. I want to do the last 2 singles I've done. We did the one before this one that I did in 2023. What Comes Around. We did. We used the vocal ghost track, and we did electric guitar, organs, drums, and bass. And I love tracking things live. It just feels so much better. And I think there's a joy that you get from that communication that translates into the music in a very real way. Like there's a few people I've talked to that are producers that are like, yeah, I just use really good samples. And I'm like, I'm sure they sound good, but will they feel as good?
Yeah. And that's the difference, I think, because so much music is polished, because in some ways it's not hard to be polished, but it's hard to get that sort of emotion and that sort of feeling that you don't get when you get a bunch of people together in a room.
I felt a rush singing those vocals, doing it with the band in a really meaningful way. And I think my vocal takes were better because I had that surge of emotion going through. It wasn't like I was just like, all right, let's get this take. It was, we were creating something in the moment. And I still think that there is a real value in that. Like, I do a lot of demoing on my own, and I'll, do my own, I'll do some versions of pre-production on my own to get a feel for what the arrangement should feel like. But the idea of being in the same room together, that's an important thing. Like, it really makes a difference.
And when you do like for this song, for example, there's no metronome, there's no click you guys are playing to, right? It's all.
Oh, no. We did play to a click because we were using a Ghost Track guitar, but we didn't rely on the click. It was in there, but there are times where the time bends a little bit, and I don't. Younger me might have been like, oh, it's not perfect. Not, older and wiser me says if it feels right, that's like everything else is secondary to that. Like, what you're trying to deliver is not about having perfect timing. If the song feels like it should bend in a place, how many times have you seen this is why people have conductors with orchestras where you can bend time to display emotion. And there are more than a few times in that song where you can feel things start to bend a little bit. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that is a musical element that you can lose sometimes with a click, but it depends on the vibe of the song. Like, some songs are based on sitting in that groove, in that pocket. And there are large parts of this song that are, but things towards the end of the song tend to taper off into a little retardando, or, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's a musical element that you can use. It's not essential all the time, depending on the song, but in this song, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate you say, older, wiser, because I think, it's a sign of maturity.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to say we don't have to use a click, but...
Oh, no. Everybody should use a click to be the best that they can be, because it forces you to be better with your timing.
Yes.
And there are, like I said, there are some songs where if it's got like if you're playing an R&B tune that's got this really locked in groove, for consistency's sake, you can have a click, but it also will depend on the people that you're playing with in the session, because if somebody isn't good enough to maintain their timing that well, the click will force you to.
Yeah. I wasn't saying like necessarily to use a click or not to use a click, but the larger picture is not putting a blanket philosophy over any one thing, and saying, like you're saying, like, you want to be able to serve the song. Well, how do you serve the song? Sometimes, it takes the older, wiser person to be like, yeah, we don't necessarily need to include all that stuff. We don't necessarily need to use a click in this part of the song. Maybe we do here. Maybe it's never a black and white sort of decision making. It's always it depends on what's going on.
It's context, exactly.
Context,
like there are times where it makes sense, where you want it to be like tight as a drum, and then there's times where having a little bit more flexibility with the timing can lend itself well to the emotional landscape of a tune.
Yeah. And it's also, if you, it's with the players, it's, you get great players, they know how to play together, and they can just lay down, a great song in like a few takes. And otherwise it might take a band, a whole day just to get one song. I remember being very surprised at how many takes the Beatles did. Like, sometimes they would do like 13 or 15 takes of a song, and I never thought about that. I always thought they'd do like one or two because they were the Beatles, but
no one ever sees anything but the end product, right? Until you go back, unless you go back and, like I said, and now we're getting all this cool archival footage that we can watch, right?
Yeah. You find out they're just normal people.
Yeah, like the Beatles were master songwriters, but as far as their playing, they had to work on it as much as any of us do. They weren't these like virtuoso shredders or anything like that. Like there are guys I know that can walk, that are, they've been session musicians for 20, 30 years for a reason. They can walk in and lay it down on one take, and that is a gift and a skill that they have worked at tirelessly. Again and again. Like, there was a guitar player who passed away recently who played on my wife's first full length, named Tony Zorzi. This guy, I cannot tell you how brilliant this guy was. He could walk into the session, looked at the chart, and just banged out these perfect solos. And he would do 2 or 3 of them, so you had some options. But he was just such a master player. For me, it was fun because I gigged with her live with these tunes, so I would lift his solos. This guy's he's just so good.
Yeah, I don't know how you get that good, but I guess it has to do with practicing.
Do with practicing, a lot of experience, a lot of listening.
Yeah, and there is being comfortable in a studio setting and being able to give that in a studio setting, because there are some people that it doesn't always translate well in a studio setting versus how you do it live. It's a very different experience. Now, the live off the floor thing makes it feel more live, which can really help. But, you know, I've did records for years where we did almost every instrument separately. And sometimes it went great, and sometimes it was 13, 14, 28 takes. You know?
Oh, yeah. That is no fun. I've done that, and that is no fun at all. I think we're running out of time.
I think that is all the time I'm here in the band. Yeah, that's all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Matt Zaddy. Where can our listeners find out more about you and hear some more tunes?
Best place is to search my name, Matt Zaddy. You just search Matt Zaddy or go to mattzaddy.com. So Matt like you expect, and Zaddy like daddy, but with a Z. Things come up real quick.
Alrighty. Okay, we want to hear from you too, so please send your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. Whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend. Bring a song and a lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil.
PhilEmery.ca.
And Matt, what's your favorite social media channel? Where do you post the most?
Probably Instagram or Facebook. I post the same things on both, but both of them is just whatever the website is /Matt Zaddy.
Cool. All right. And be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing. What was your funny story, Matt? Because we can put that in the YouTube extended after credits scene.
Sure. I'm trying to remember what the hell the funny story was now.
About the studio, not everything. About being in the studio and doing like 28 takes because everyone's overdubbing.
There are some times where the dreaded red button, the dreaded red light. See that on, and all of a sudden it's like, I just can't play my own songs now. That's just great. I've had a few times like that. One of the things that I've done in the last little while is I will have some songs where I'll have some lead ideas, and some of them where we'll construct the leads in the studio, where I'll do 3, 4, 5, 6 different takes. We'll say, well, I like this idea. I like this idea. I like this idea. Let's try to take that into a take to try to build the melody that you want for the solo. Like my last record, I had one solo on the record. I think we only had 2 solos on the record because it's just the style of it. Not every song needed it. One solo, what I came in with, he was like, yeah, it's perfect. I wouldn't change a damn thing. And then the other one we built together, and it had a very sort of Black Crowes kind of vibe, sort of like a hard to handle style solo. And we sort of pieced it together, but at the end of it, I was like, wow, this is exactly what it should be. We just brainstormed our way through it, and it worked out. But I've had some sessions, like I I've had some sessions where, like when I was recording that intro in the studio, like I find whenever you're using nails on an acoustic guitar, it's very easy to make scratching sounds.
Oh,
and I'm sitting there and I'll get like a perfect tick and the last note will have a scratch and I'm like, damn it!
Go back and punch in that one note.
Exactly, right? So what I try to do in that context is as best I can not do that.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because I've been with the Hookers, we went into the studio and for the second CD, and I thought we got down some really good takes. I really liked it. And I was listening to them, and it would get me excited. But then there was a falling out with the engineer, and he wasn't able to do it, so we had to actually retrack it all, and it never quite grabbed that magic. It's just because it was all live off the floor, so that can be one of the dangers of doing live off the floor is you can't always grab that magic again.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for having me. Just tag me in anything that comes out and I'll make sure to share it across the landscape.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for coming on. Great stuff as always.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Good to see you again, Matt.
All the best, guys.
Take
care now.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.